And we are live, and we're live. I think we're live. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Maximo, your host, and welcome to VodPod Media, our very special Cinco de Mayo show, sponsored, promoted, partnered by, powered by Ofelia Delgado Law. Folks, if you don't know, you have just met, you're getting ready to meet your very own personal injury attorney in just a few moments. Thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in from wherever you may be, go ahead and give us a like, give us a comment, give us a share, subscribe. Let us know how you're doing tonight. We're having a good time because we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo, but we're not doing the typical Cinco de Mayo, not this unwoke, commercialized, co-opted Cinco de Mayo that you find. We are here to empower, to educate, and to really get our people focused on something with a mission. Nowadays you get these Cinco de Mayo celebrations where people think they're celebrating the Mexican Independence Day, which, folks, if you didn't know, it's not the Mexican Independence Day. It isn't Cinco de Drinko. Who even knows what that is? Are you kidding me? Who made that up? I don't know, but we're here to get you calibrated to where you need to be, and that is advocating for our people, because there's no separation of the true spirit of our people, which is rooted in social justice, which is rooted in empowerment, in respect, in a deep gratitude to our people, to the land, and to all these things that we celebrate. And so we're reclaiming that Cinco de Mayo. If you're feeling it, if you're with it, give us a like, give us a share, because we got to bring it back, right? Now, many people have asked me, Maximo, why are you doing this show? Why are you doing this at VodPod? And this is why. We want to talk about the real issues. And folks, on this Cinco de Mayo, I'm challenging you. We're here, it's May 2nd, but Cinco de Mayo is in a couple of days. I'm challenging you. If you acknowledge Cinco de Mayo in any way, I hope that you will advocate for the most vulnerable populations, because our people are champions. They are warriors. They are deeply rooted in honor. And some of those people, those very people, those leaders we have here with us tonight in studio, and they're going to be here to talk to you about their mission, about doing purpose-driven work, because that's what this is about. That's what Cinco de Mayo is about. It's a holiday, so to speak, right? Is it really? Maybe. We could talk about Cinco de Mayo, right? We could talk about a group of ragtag soldiers, about 600 of them in 1862, led by General Zaragoza, I think his name is, who is actually from Goliad. He was born in Goliad, Texas, and led a group of ragtag soldiers to overcome an invading French army, almost 6,000. They weren't ready for all that jelly that those Mexican soldiers were getting ready to deal with them. And folks, that's the true spirit of our people. It's overcoming obstacles. To me, Cinco de Mayo, if it's about one thing, it's about fighting colonial forces. And those colonial forces are still at work today. They're still at work today. And they manifest in all of the ugliness that we have in our communities and around, right? We talk about violence. We talk about greed. We talk about people being taken advantage of, right? We talk about immigrants who are taken advantage of in this country, and they're booted back, they're scapegoated, and we've got politicians that are making a name for themselves, and they're fear-mongering to their people. Did I remind you there's an election coming up? There's an election coming up, folks, and wherever you may be, I'm challenging you to get out there and use your voice. Because if we're going to party and we're going to celebrate for Cinco de Mayo, which there ain't nothing wrong with having a little bit of fun, I'm challenging you to get out here and do some of this work as well. You can do it. We can all do it. And just like a small group of those Mexican soldiers got together, never doubt, right? Never doubt that a group of small, empowered people can make a difference. And that's what we're doing here tonight. And so without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce our first guest. She is a true dynamo. She is a personal injury attorney. She specializes in all sorts of good work, and she's going to tell you about her immigration portfolio. She's going to tell you about the work she's done in the community, and we got to welcome to the stage our first guest for this evening. That's Ofelia Delgado. Welcome to the stage, Ofelia. Welcome. Welcome. Come on in.
Thank you, Maximo.
Woo! And it's hot in here, so I hope you're ready. Hope you're ready to sweat under them lights. But you look great, by the way. Thank you so much for being here, Ofelia. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a late night, but I'm excited to be here, and I thank you.
It's late night with Maximo, turning in at VodPod. So thank you so much for being here, and we have to thank you for your partnership, for believing in the product that we have here at VodPod. You know, you've been a guest on the show. You're a supporter of the show. You know, we wanted to highlight you because we're talking about about those champions and those leaders in the community, and you are up there with the best of them. You've been working in the community as an attorney for over 10 years, but you have an impressive resume and bio. You sent me your full resume, and I was like, wow, I didn't know all this. Full background, education. You've traveled the country. You've been involved in a lot of different circles. I know you worked in nonprofit, and you decided to become an attorney. So my first question for you is, when did you know that you wanted to advocate for other people?
Good question. I first want to say that the reason I sponsored the show is because it's really an engaging platform. I appreciate what you're talking about, especially the Cinco de Mayo angle in history. So the question was again?
When did you decide you wanted to be an advocate and advocate for some of those most vulnerable people?
I think at a very young age. People have asked me when I wanted to become an attorney or how that came about. It was when I was young. I would see a lot. My mom's an immigrant from Mexico, and when we would travel to Mexico and come back, I would hear stories and I would observe my family being fearful of the Border Patrol and fearful of being in this country, of taking low-paying jobs, right, of putting up with abuse maybe because of their immigration status. So I really that inspired me to want to help people. And that just drove me into the nonprofit world. I was a grassroots organizer for a good while. The work that I do every day is sparked from a desire to want to help to keep families together, to help reunite families, and also to bring justice, right, when there's so much injustice for our community.
So it's interesting that justice is hard to come by in this country, right? And you know this well, being an attorney, right? You've seen a lot of things. You've had to advocate for people. You've got to know the system. Yes. Which, for better or for worse, this is what we're dealing with right now. Yeah. So we got to have people like yourself in the community that are, advocating for people, that are standing up for people, that are going to, represent people in a court of law.
Yes, yes.
And so tell me a little bit about, the immigration side of this work, right? And so we know it's not really set up perfectly, right? We know it's a very difficult thing, that you need a lot of money to navigate the immigration system. But tell us a little bit about, just your thoughts on the immigration system.
Well, it's a broken system. Definitely is a broken system. It's a system that you have to pay a lot of money, not only for filing fees, you have to pay a lot of money to an attorney, hopefully a good attorney that's going to do right by you, right? So it is a very difficult system to navigate. It's a system that's set up really to not help out a lot of the times the families that are trying to promote themselves and trying to get something to stay here legally. So for me, I know that system is broken, right? We see it every day. I see it every day in working with my clients. So for us, it's trying to find those loopholes, right? Legal loopholes where we can tell a family, look, this is what is the best avenue for you, right? This is what you should do. This is my legal advice to you after hearing all the facts of a person's case. The system of immigration is so draconian. For example, the asylum law, it's so draconian. That law must be changed. It should be changed. And a lot of times it is from our own community that should come from, right? Unfortunately, if you don't have politicians that are either strong enough or there's not enough numbers to be able to change a law or make an executive order come into play, then it's probably not going to help, right? Or even it's the politics of our country, For example, a Republican majority may vote for something, wherein the Democratic majority may vote for something else. There's always a lot of battle between those two parties, unfortunately, and that doesn't help the everyday person that's trying to get relief. Yeah,
and then, that's a great point because, again, we talk about partisan politics, right? It's not something that we really always want to talk about, but, these people are making decisions on behalf of our communities, and they were affecting people's lives. Yes. Many of our families, you mentioned your mother's from Mexico, a lot of our people were, born in Mexico, born in this country, somewhere along the border, right, spread out in different ways, Yes. It's a shame, but the other thing is that we have the opportunity to go out and vote as well, right? And voting is something that not a lot of people want to get their hands involved in sometimes because they don't want to vote one way or the other. Yes. People are saying, well, it's the lesser of two evils, and one party's did us wrong and the other party's did us worse.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so that's a difficult subject as well. But my personal feelings is that we have to go out and try. That's one avenue. This show is an avenue. The work that you're doing is an avenue. Yes. The work that Patricia's doing is an avenue. We have to exhaust every angle in my opinion, to uplifting our people, to pulling our people up, to lifting as we climb.
Yes.
And so, the work that we're doing is a part of having that rebel spirit, which we talk about. That's been the theme of the show,
Yes.
right? Because we know you as an attorney, and you've talked about it as la mera mera, that
right.
you bringing it, right? You got a promo video. I saw that you were in a boxing ring, and you don't look like you're messing around.
No, I
You
don't
didn't-
mess around. When
you
you
didn't
mess
come
with
to
my
mess
clients,
around.
you're messing with the wrong person if you want to mess with my clients.
So let's talk about that. That strong leadership. Why is that needed in order to get justice?
Ooh.
In order to have the favorable outcomes? Because as much as we believe in peace and as much as we would want to get along, you're going to have to fight for some things that you want in this world, and justice has got to be one of those things.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've heard people say that justice is an illusion, right? And I think there's some truth to that. Now, the person that can have the better story, can tell the better story, can be the most vocal, can be the most radical out there in your face. It does help, I have to say, right? Things are not handed to you, especially when you have come from an oppressed community. And I work with an oppressed community. I work with immigrants that are invisible, that are scared, that have thrown their money at people that have not helped them. And that's also in the personal injury angle as well, right? A lot of immigrants are afraid to report a injury or afraid to report a car accident because they think that their immigrant status is going to affect it. Those courts, in the civil court, it does not matter. Your immigration status is not at issue there. So when you have an advocate like myself, La Mera Mera, the attorney, saying, if that is brought up, that's not even an issue there. That's not something the judge has to talk about. The judge will not even hear it in personal injury civil cases. Immigration is different, of course, right? But going back to what you asked, you definitely have to be an advocate. If you are an attorney and you have your client's best interest in mind, you go in there as a warrior. You go in there as a fighter. You know your law, you know your facts, and you know that case more than the DA knows their case, right? Because they have so many other cases, and you studied that case, and you know your clients. You know your immigration case. You know the PI case well, because you want to do a good job for your clients. And for me, I don't like to fail. That's just my personality too. So it's helping my client, but also knowing that my work and my integrity is on the line. And as an attorney, we have a fiduciary duty to our clients and to the community.
So that sounds promising. So if I'm looking for an immigration attorney, I'm thinking about calling Ofelia Delgado. And we've got her information, and we need those advocates.
Definitely.
Right? I mean, we're talking about people's lives here
Yes.
in a lot of different ways. And the other area that you're now taking clients in is personal injury.
Yes.
So people would think, well, personal injury, I mean, what does that even mean? Give us the information on personal injury. Give us what the cases look like. Give us the 411, if you will, about what this whole lay of the land looks
Yes.
like.
So I think the first thing I want to say is that when people hear personal injury attorneys, they get a bad taste in their mouth, I think, because they're like, oh, attorneys just want money in their pocket. Well, any profession that you go into is looking to make money, to feed their families, to put food on their table. So for me, the personal injury is because we're going against these high-powered insurance companies, right? They have a lot of power. They have so much money. And what happens is that people don't know the system. They won't call that advocate. They won't call that that lawyer, because they believe, well, what am I going to get out of it? This was a fender bender, for example, or, I'm not really that hurt, or, a month has passed and I'm not, this is not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal, because you can get money in your pocket for you to be able to put food on the table, for you to be able to pay those medical bills. So as a PI attorney, if somebody gets into an auto or truck accident, we recommend that you call the office. It's on contingency, meaning you don't pay anything unless we win. You don't pay anything unless we win. And you don't pay a consultation fee, because I need to assess the case to determine if it's a good case. What does that mean? If the party that hurt you, that hit you in that vehicle, has the insurance to be able to cover you, right, to be able to cover you. Now, if that's not the case, now that person may have money in their pockets. We don't know, right? So then you can do a separate, if that insurance doesn't come through, you can do a civil litigation against that person who injured you, right? So there's a lot of investigation that's done at the beginning to determine if it's a good case. And what does that mean? That means that you'll get your medical paid for. That means that you'll get money in your pocket. That means that you're going to get zero on having to pay any debt back, right? It depends on the severity of the injuries. If you're going to get, pain and suffering, if you're going to get lost wages because you missed work because of the accident. There's a lot that goes into it. So people will say, well, I didn't really go to a lawyer because I had to pay for the medical. Well, that's not true. The personal injury law is we have a relationship with the doctors. They know that if they treat the person that has been injured, that they're waiting for that settlement at the end of the case. They know that they're going to get paid then. Now, the good thing about these cases is that we have a good relationship with these doctors, and they oftentimes reduce. We don't like to say that out loud sometimes, but they reduce the fees in order to, and we push for that. Why? Because that means more money in my client's pocket.
So this is all important because, again, a lot of different things happening. But one, here at VodPod, we are big supporters at the Maximo Show as well of health and wellness. And we want our people to thrive in all ways, mentally, physically, spiritually. Now, it's hard to do that when you're suffering financially if something happens. Listen, I'm one of the first persons that'll rail against traffic in San Antonio, right? We know the traffic in San Antonio is getting out of hand.
Yes.
But it's if something were to happen, that can be a very slippery slope for many of our people who in tough economic times, let's face it, a lot of our people are struggling financially right now. It's difficult to make it, to put food on the table.
Yes.
And so if something were to happen, someone's hit by a car or truck in rush hour, whatever it may be, they can call you at no cost and
Correct.
You will consult them on if there is a case or not, which could potentially end up having them come out with some form of money.
Exactly. So well, not only the money, it's the treatment.
Yes.
Right? If you go immediately to medical treatment when you need it, you may not think it. You get injured, you don't feel anything that first day, it's the second day, the third day, a week later, it gets really progressively worse. So it's so important to go either to the ER or to go to an urgent care, get documentation that you were involved in an auto accident, right? Somebody hit you, what the pain is, if you feel it on your neck, your back, whatever. No, don't lie about it, but you are documenting it and you're putting it down on paper. And contact my office immediately, and then I will consult with you. And we will see if the case is a good case to move forward with. We'll send you to the doctors. You'll get the treatment you need. We have seen time and time again people that come to us when the statute of limitations has run. That means after 2 years, if you don't do anything on a PI case, excuse my language, you're screwed. Right?
Well, this is a late night show, so we don't have to excuse your language.
You're going to live with that pain. You're going to live with that pinched nerve. You're going to live with that limped, leg.
And we don't want that.
And you don't want that. You don't want that. What does it hurt you to call and to get an evaluation, to get a consultation for free, right?
Yeah.
That is the best thing you can do for yourself and for your family.
Well, I think that's important, but you're right. Many of our people don't know. They don't know all this, which is why we're having this show, which is why we have you on as a guest, because we have to have all of our bases covered.
Yes.
Right? We have to have someone on the phone for anything. If you need a limpia real quick, you got someone to call. If you need an immigration attorney, you're going to call this person. If you need someone who's been affected by domestic violence,
yes.
you know who to call. We got to have those resources available in our community in every pocket, because really no one else is going to look out for us, right?
Yes.
If you allow the system to do it, and again, a lot of people have problems with railing against the system, but we don't here at VodPod. but you're right. People are taken advantage of when they don't know how to navigate the system in a lot of different ways. So people would think personal injury, well, I don't know much about personal injury. Well, we want to make this your business.
Yes.
We want to make this to say, if you know someone, if you may be affected by a car or truck incident, you call Ophelia. There's no cost. You're also, if you do have a case with a personal incident, you will take on that case and you get what? What does the compensation look like?
Well, it depends on the insurance, right? If the person who injured you has really good insurance, we always ask for what they call policy limits, right? Now, the insurance doesn't want to give it up so easily. So that's also the reason that you want an attorney, because you have to push back. We know the law. We know how to get those things. We know if we have to subpoena, we have to get to that point. We know if there's a case that the insurance may not want to pay, but we're gonna go again. We're gonna file a lawsuit, because that's the step you need to take to get their attention, right? Doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna go to court. Just means that, hey, you don't want to pay my client, then we're gonna go to litigation. Let's let a jury decide if my client is injured. right? So then a lot of that time, then the insurance comes back and said, okay, I'll negotiate. I'll talk to you,
Yeah.
right? People don't know this. You're talking about the system. The insurances are set up not to pay you the max.
So
right?
wait a minute, you're telling me there's a company out here that doesn't have our best interests, is what you're telling me.
Yes. So I get clients too, or people that cannot be clients at a certain point because they've been working with the insurance because they caught the insurance. They, in good faith, thought the insurance was their friend or really wanted to take care of them. And at the end, it's like, here's $4,000. Do with that to pay your medical, do with that with your lost wages, do with that whatever you need to. That's all we have, right? They strung them along to the end. Now they're calling the attorney, and sometimes it's too late because they didn't do the steps that they should have from the beginning.
Yeah, and it is shady business practices, folks. Listen, we are not entirely anti-capitalist.
Yes.
Well, if anybody is, it's me. But we know that in the system, we got to play the game as well. You can't be out here saying, oh, we're not going to play the game. We got to navigate. We got to play the game. We got to know the game just as well. And so the point is we got resources available, folks.
Yes, yes.
And we've got to utilize each other. We've got to, look out for each other. We've got to support one another in all the various ways possible.
Yes.
And so what else you got on that?
Well, I also want to say that you always have to protect yourself too and your family. So keep a good insurance, right? Because what happens is that people sometimes do get hit, and there's a hit and run. And if you don't get a license plate, you don't get a person, you don't get anything, you at least have your own insurance that can cover you, right? If that's a situation, unfortunately, that's a situation. That happened to me before while I was taking the bar to go to law, to get into law. I was on the highway. This driver came in, was going full speed ahead. Before I knew it, hit me, turned me full circle onto oncoming traffic. Thank God that oncoming traffic was a good ways out, but it was coming. That person just took off the highway, never heard from them again. So my insurance had to pay for that. Imagine if I hadn't had insurance. If I had said, I can go without paying that, right? Then I would have had a debt. I probably wouldn't have gotten my medical. I didn't have the money. For God's sake, I was studying for the bar to go to law school. I was broke and in debt.
Well, I'm glad you stayed alive.
Yes.
Because many people, again, if you're hit by a drunk driver, listen, folks, if you're going to be out there drinking for Cinco de Mayo, for whatever case, please do not drink and drive. Don't be irresponsible.
Yes.
And again, it's we don't like to lecture people per se, but if you need a reminder, please don't drink and drive.
Yes. I like to have my drinks, but I don't.
Absolutely.
I don't drink and drive.
Listen, there's absolutely nothing wrong with having some fun. Our
Yes.
people know how to celebrate. Our people love to have fun. We're spirited, festive people. We're all for it. I'll throw the biggest party possible.
Well, please invite me, Maximo.
Well, we're inviting everybody to the party. We're inviting everybody to the party. And if you're watching right now, stay tuned. Stay tuned. You got to subscribe to VodPod. Don't go anywhere. There's still time for you to share this live stream. Did I mention we're live right now? Nice. I was sweating bullets.
Yes.
Hey, so we were sweating bullets earlier, but we pulled it off. We are live, and we have a lively studio audience. We're going to take a photo later, and so we hope you're subscribing and watching. Give us a share. Give us a comment. We have so many treats for y'all tonight. We have a performance artist, Nicolas Valdez, who's going to be with us in just a bit. So we've got to welcome him to the stage in a little while. Don't get too excited. He's going to just tear this place down. If you hadn't heard of him, you owe it to yourself to stick around and find out. So, Ophelia, I got to ask you a few more questions, but I want to know, what do you do? So since we talked about the legal side,
yes.
What do you like to do in your spare time if you have spare time?
Me encanta el baile. I love to dance. I don't get to do it as often now because I have my 2.5-year-old, but I love to dance. I grew up, I think, in a family that when we had a lot of fiestas, it was literally every weekend. It was in my maternal aunt's house. It was the second aunt down the road because it was my mother's first aunt. And so she was a matriarch here in San Antonio. She came from Mexico, and we had fiestas all the time. So I saw my cousins dancing, and I loved it. It was like magic to me. And so I've loved that since I was a child. I like to read, I like to write, and I should like to exercise, but I don't, Maximo.
Well, it's okay. That's okay. The next time we have an event, we are going to have you, and we're going to, have your family, and we appreciate you for all the work that you do. And this isn't goodbye, right? We're not sending you off anywhere, of course. And so we continue to work together. And so we're very proud to partner with Ophelia tonight. She does phenomenal work in the community. Please consider her. We're going to get you connected with her. You can DM us for more information. Find her at OpheliaDelgadoLaw.com. And yeah, we just appreciate you for being here. You look fabulous under these lights, by the way.
Thank you. Call mera mera. We're here. I care. And we're not going to leave you hanging. And we will be truthful with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Ofelia. And so we appreciate you, and we're going to bring you back as well, but stay seated, and we're going to call up our next guest. When you talk about fierce and fiery leadership, look no further. 35 years in the community, folks, fighting for justice, fighting for peace, fighting for equality, and fighting for women, fighting for families. You know, when I first met Patricia, she was the first one to talk to me about fatherhood, about what it meant to be a good dad. And I was like, wow, that's some deep stuff. And that, you know, you talk about family, you didn't really know Patricia, but you just felt like family.
Yes.
So welcome to the stage, Patricia Castillo. Please welcome the Peace Initiative Executive Director. Come on up. Just swing it out, swing it out. Come on in, have a seat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Patricia. How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's fabulous. We've been looking to have you on the show. We finally had an opportunity to bring you in, and so I'm so excited. You look great as well, minus the circumstances. I'm so sorry that you fell. You were up in Minnesota, I believe, at a conference, Wisconsin, and man, the ice up there is out of control. They need to salt those sidewalks. What are they doing?
That's right. And so, yeah, I had a little accident, but we're healing, and I don't need no surgery, so I'm elated.
Good.
I'm elated.
Good. Well, you look great, and as always, you're beaming, and so you just got this energy and this irresistible charisma, and you've been doing this work for a long time. So let me ask you. I mean, there's a lot of things I could talk to you about right now, but there is an infamous painting of you out on the streets with the blowhorn, with the sign, and just yelling and you know, fighting for peace. And that sounds like a kind of a conundrum there, fighting for peace.
Right.
But we've got a serious problem in a lot of our communities of domestic violence, of family violence. And nobody knows that subject better than you. You've been on several national platforms, you know, to talk about this. What has drawn you to this work?
You know, to me, Maximo, all of our social problems begin in domestic family violence. Every single problem we have is the root cause is family violence. Whatever you're talking about, whether you're talking about substance abuse, whether you're talking about mental health issues, whether you're talking about child abuse, elder abuse, you know, crime in the community, you know, a prison industrial complex that is busting at the seams with our people mainly, because it's mainly black and brown people in those prison systems. All of that stems from family violence. It is there. That is the root. That is the source. Esa es la fuente of where these things come from. And to me, if we could end family violence, we would solve every other social problem we have in our world. And so I grew up in a family that was very loving, but my parents were ignorant about discipline, and they thought that the way you discipline children is you beat the crap out of them, and because that's how they were raised. And, you know, we pass on ignorance, just like smarts get passed on, so does ignorance. And that lack of information, that lack of knowledge was a bad setup. Yeah. And so we grew up being hit a lot. And so that created an environment of resentment and, you know, trouble, right? And so in my family, I grew up with the experience of bad coping mechanisms, alcohol abuse, that kind of stuff, right? So all of that has affected my family, and I've had to overcome a lot of that stuff. But it has also shown me that it can be done. You know, it has also shown me that people don't have to live like that. It has also shown me that we are a resilient people. And con ganas todo se puede, you know. And so, you know, when you learn about what not to do, and what kinds of things you can do to replace bad behavior, then we can overcome all kinds of stuff. And that's what I've seen. The fuel to my fire is survivors. I know thousands of women that have gotten themselves out of situations of abuse and violence. Some of them with a little bit of help, some of them with a lot of help. But the main thing to recognize is that we're our own savior.
Yeah.
We are our own savior. Nobody's going to come and do stuff for us. Nobody's going to come and drag us out of situations. Ultimately, we're the only ones that can do that. But when you train and educate and inform a community, then a community can act in its own behalf.
There you go. Yeah, that autonomy. And so, but here's the thing, I mean, I think we can heal ourselves.
Yes.
We can have those teachers. We can have those
Yes.
people that uplift our people out of problems. We've had a lot of people that have turned their lives around through
Absolutely.
work you've done.
Yes.
Right. We've talked about, some of the stuff in the courts, right? And people are sent to you,
Yeah.
and we do education, right? We just do a 360 approach.
Right.
What is it about violence that our people are attracted to? I mean, you mentioned earlier, I think we all come from loving families, right? Or what we believe to be loving families.
Right.
And so is this idea of maybe like tough love and discipline, a part of that? And people feel like they can discipline their children or hit someone to solve problems and teach someone a lesson. I mean, why is that? Where did that come from?
Well, it is about ignorance. It's about the lack of knowledge and the lack of understanding what, there's a short-term impact. Like maybe your kid is going to listen to you and do what as they're told while you're standing right there in front of them and standing over them with a belt in your hand. But once you're gone to go do what you got to do, the kid's just going to turn around and do the same thing again just to make sure that they don't get caught the second time. And so what we teach our children is to be devious, to be sneaky, to be tricky, and to, figure out how to outsmart their parent. And you don't want to do that. You want your child to look up to you. You want your child to respect you. You want your child to communicate with you. You want your child to feel respected by you, because that's how they're going to turn around and respect you as their parent, right? And so there's other ways. That's why at the Peace Initiative we teach parenting skills using the Triple P curriculum, and we deliver those classes in English and Spanish, and we do it for free.
Wow.
And so because we want parents to build a relationship with their children where they communicate with each other and they respect each other and they love each other and they know that the parent is somebody that they can count on and not somebody that they're going to fear and not somebody that they're going to turn against because of the resentment that they have towards that parent. We don't want our children to resent us. We want to be known as the go-to person for my child, and so that's what teaching parents effective parenting skills is all about.
Yeah, and so this is a sore subject, domestic violence, right? We don't like talking about it a
No.
lot, but it's something that we have to confront. We have to acknowledge that there's a problem,
Right.
and we have to work for it. I hear a lot of people telling me, well, no one ever taught me how to be a parent. It is difficult to be a parent.
It is.
But there are resources available.
Yes, there
There
is.
are resources available that you can connect people with.
Yes.
You offer the free services at the Peace Initiative.
Yes.
And so we need to plug in and play with our people. Now, we
right.
talked about capitalism. Dollars dictate as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And so we are raising money, right? So if you folks want to donate money, which we talk about Cinco de Mayo, folks, if you want to go out and have a drink, that's cool, but you can save some of that money and put it towards a nonprofit organization like the Peace Initiative. And you've been doing this work as steadfast and as dedicated as anyone in a very difficult, ugly environment at some point. I've heard some of the stories of very bad stories, right?
Yes.
Of what they call maybe crimes of passion, which I know that's not really a term that we embrace, but it's one that you hear a lot of people ugly. And in San Antonio, there's a very bad problem of intimate partner violence, domestic violence.
Yes.
And we've got to try to reverse that.
We do, and we have some of the highest numbers in the whole state of Texas for domestic violence, which is partner violence, right? Relationship violence. For teen dating violence, we have a lot of young people that are already involved in abusive relationships, and they're in middle school and high school. We have a serious child abuse problem. And, that stems from, when adults are involved in an abusive relationship, they just pass on the same violence to their kids.
Yeah.
And so, kids are dying at alarming rates. Wow. And then in Texas, you throw in permitless carry, and you don't need a background check. You don't need a license or a certification or a training course to use a weapon, to access a weapon, to buy a weapon. You just have to have money and be 18. And so the proliferation and the access of weapons everywhere is also a very bad combination in terms of domestic violence. When there's domestic violence and weapons in the same household, your chances of being murdered increase 500%.
Yeah.
And so we have that going on too in Texas. And that's going to continue. The other thing that recently happened was that the Fifth Circuit Court just recently ruled that people that have protective orders issued against them no longer have to give up their weapons in Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Wow.
And so that means that a lot more people are going to die, because people who use violence are now going to be able to also keep their weapons, and they're going to use them against the people that they say they love. Because domestic violence is not love.
So this is serious. This is as serious as it gets. We're talking death.
Yes.
We're talking the end, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is something that is so shameful and so sad that we have to talk about this. I don't think any of us would feel the same if we dealt with the loss of a loved one in this way.
Right.
Right. And so, when we talk about this stuff, it is serious, and it shows what's at stake and why the change is so urgent of taking this work seriously, of pressing on it, pressing on the gas pedal, and us saying, look, we've got to do something about this. We've got to reverse it. We know there are other factors that contribute to this. You mentioned guns. Another one is alcohol.
Yes,
now,
substance abuse, absolutely.
Substance abuse, right? And so we know that Fiesta just happened in San Antonio, and you had some things to say about Fiesta.
Yeah, I boycott Fiesta. I gave up on Fiesta many, many years ago, probably 35 years ago. I stopped participating in Fiesta because I see it as an oppressive event, and 12, 14 days of constant consumption that fries our brain, and it takes you a long time to recover from that much consumption, not to mention how much money you throw away doing this, because everything is, 2 and 3 times more expensive during Fiesta. And our families, we live in an economically segregated city, the most economically segregated city in the nation. And in San Antonio, it might not look like it, but you have families, like a family of 4, that live on like $26,000 a year. Oh my gosh. And so, our families have no business going to Fiesta and throwing away the little bit of money and resources that they have because they want to be a part of the mix, and it's devastating for our families, right? And so you have families taking out loans at those,
Say it ain't so.
Yes.
Say it ain't so.
And to do Fiesta. And so, and then the numbers went up on DWIs this year to 146 DWIs in 10 days. 146 DWIs in 10 days, up 20 from last year, okay? And so it costs about anywhere from $17,000 to $20,000 to deal with a DWI.
So listen, folks, the message here is if you're taking out a loan to go get a chicken on a stick, don't do it.
Don't do it.
That is a giant chicken tender that they go down there and get by Costco by the dozens.
Yes.
We don't need to buy things $10, $12 for a chicken on a stick. Don't do it, folks.
That's right. It's
a
nothing
trap.
to be proud of.
So listen, we talk about this rebel spirit because you're an advocate. I mean, you're a fighter. You're not backing down from this challenge of ending such a enormous problem.
Yes.
Now, you talk about your anti-fiesta.
Yeah.
You talk about, talking about how the corruption there is out there in the courts and everything, right? How messed up it is. Are you fearful that, powerful people in the area are going to look down on you and try to shut you down? You don't care, she says.
I don't care. I'm doing what I was put on this earth to do.
Yeah.
And this is something that I know. Okay? This is something that I know. And if I care about what happens to my people, then I have to lift my voice. It's when you shut down and shut up and stay drunk and party and, blow things off, that's when you're in trouble. But as long as I keep doing what I was put on this earth to do, then I'm okay. I'm good. And people can be mad at me and people can hate me and people can resent me. I don't care. I'm still going to tell the truth.
Ooh.
And
they're bringing it tonight, folks.
Y si te cala, te cala. Too bad, It's not my problem. It's your problem, and what are you going to do about it? That becomes my challenge, right? Is what are you going to do about it? And because we all have a responsibility. Yeah. We all have an obligation, especially those of us that have the privilege of, being able to speak up and to say something. I grew up in the barrio, right there off of Couples and Saltillo. I grew up in the barrio. I mean, who would have thought that somebody from the barrio is going to grow up to be, a social worker with a master's degree that can do this kind of stuff, right? That wasn't expected of me. My father worked in the meat packing plants. My mother was a homemaker with an 8th grade education. That wasn't supposed to happen. And yet, my father made it happen, right? He sent me to school. He said, usted va a ir a la universidad y es todo lo que va a pasar y cállese. No me diga nada más. And he just, he set me up for success, and he didn't realize what he was doing, but that's what came of it, right? And so, we're obligated. If we have resources, if we have access, if we have a voice, if we have capacity and knowledge that these things are harming our communities, then we have an obligation to speak up.
Yeah. Well, listen, folks, I am so impressed. I am so sharpened. I feel so motivated by speaking with you two because you found that purpose-driven work that some people never find.
Right.
A lot of our people are going through the motions every day. Right. They're unhappy. Yeah. They feel like their lives are already over.
Right.
And they're trapped in a cycle of going to work, paying bills, and coming home, living in debt, and then they become depressed, and then they have all of these other issues.
Right.
And so what do you say? Let's get some words from you both. What do you say to those people to go ahead and tap into that passion, that purpose, that fire? Because it's empowering. I mean, to see people in their element, doing what they love, whatever it may be, whether it's in a court of law, whether it's in the community, whether it's in the dance, circles. When you see someone, it's just like, wow, it's music.
Yeah.
You just feel so natural.
Yeah.
What is that? What would you say to those people?
I'm so proud of Ophelia because, Ophelia used to work at the Peace Initiative.
I heard that.
For a while. And so, I'm so proud of everything that she's become, and because I got to witness her growing up and blossoming and doing what she wanted to do, and didn't let anything stand in her way.
Yeah.
And all of us can do that. All of us can do that. And, she grew up in a tough family environment. I grew up in a tough family environment. But you know what? That's one piece of who we are. And it's a little piece because we get to design the rest of it. We get to decide what we're going to do with ourselves. And we're not going to let those wounds dictate our destiny. Okay? And so part of that is also about healing, Maximo.
Yeah.
It's about healing. And so I'm not going to say, that I had to get into therapy. I had to heal myself. I had to go seek out, what it was that was eating my lunch that I couldn't figure it out in my head because it was in my soul that needed to be addressed. And so I had to get in there and take a chance and, and not listen to people say, ay, pues, ¿estás loca o qué? ¿Por qué tienes que ir a therapy? Why do you have to go to therapy? You crazy or what? And it's like, none of your business. This is my way of handling my shit, Yeah. And so that's what we got to do. We got to stick up for ourselves, and we got to be willing to heal ourselves, because all of us are the walking wounded in this community. All of us. We have stuff, trauma.
Yeah.
All of us have experienced things that are traumatic and painful, and but we can choose to not let it be what tells the story of our life. Yeah. It doesn't have to tell the whole story. It can be that one little piece. And it can be something that happened to us, but it's not what makes us. It's not what creates and designs our purpose and our destiny, and who we are and what we become. And so you see somebody like Ofelia being who she is, right? And I'm in awe.
Yeah.
I remain in awe. And I see women, all kinds of women, thousands of women, that I can't even imagine the horrors that they've lived. And yet I run into them in the community, Maximo, when I'm shopping at Ross, when I'm eating at a restaurant, when I'm, at the red light, and the women are like, hey, Patricia, and they know. And they want to say hi because they came out of that and they fixed it and they healed themselves, and their kids are going to college and they're joining the military, and the moms are proud, and the men who have changed are also proud. And they, and before they used to run into me and they'd hide or walk the other way, and now that they've worked on themselves and they're different, they're proud and they want to come say hi, and they want to, acknowledge who I am and what I stand for, and it's not a thing about shame anymore. We can't be filled and held down by shame, okay? We have to let go of that, because when we shut down and stay ashamed, then we give the power to the domestic violence, to the child abuse, to the sexual abuse, to the rape, that's when we shut down and give all of those crimes power over us.
Yeah. And there's the call to action, folks, because again, we want people to thrive. We want people to walk in their truth and to find that passion.
Yes.
And however it needs to be done, let us help you. Let us help each other.
Yes.
Steel sharpens steel. Iron sharpens iron. Let's get around our people. And again, let's, lift as we climb.
Yes.
Again, we're not going to find ourselves by wearing, stereotypical caricature serapes and sombreros at the bar this weekend, drinking Mexican beer. Now, again, if you'd like to go out and have some fun, that's cool. But there's a deeper sense of purpose that our people were destined for, and we've got to find it.
That's right.
We've got to find it.
It's there.
And it's absolutely there. Patricia has found it. You can feel the energy. Ofelia, we're proud of you. Again, you've heard it right here, and y'all are just wonderful. I'm going to let you get some closing words about that too. How do you feel? What does Cinco de Mayo mean to you? Give us some closing thoughts. What do you think?
Well, I have mad respect for Patricia. I've known Patricia since I was in my 20s. That's over 20-something years now. Yeah. She is a leader and someone I wanted to emulate, and I have, I think, in many ways. And I mad respect for my Patricia. So the passion, where does that come from? You said, Patricia, earlier about how you're your own savior. I honestly believe that.
It's true.
But being your own savior, you can't do it alone. So you have to find that community. You have to find the healers. You have to look for them, go knock on their door, knock the damn door down if you have to, right? To be able to get the resources, the healing, the energy, the positiveness that you need. I think as mujeres were either raised or born to be caregivers. I grew up in a home with an immigrant mother who I had all brothers and I was the only girl. So you can imagine the kind of work I had to do from a very young age. I've never really had a childhood, and grew up in a home of violence. And so when I met Patricia and did work with the piece, I understood then what I understood before, I just couldn't articulate it, that it was not only the person that was being abused, my mother, who is now a survivor, my father was also a victim of all that oppression, of the colonialism of our, and the beating down of our community. And so I couldn't leave him behind. My father grew so much, and he hasn't used the resources that are at his disposal, but because of his age and because of getting older and more experienced, he understands and he's spoken to me about those things. So the passion is you have to go after it, even when you're tired and you're exhausted and you feel you can't go on anymore. You have to keep pushing. You have to toma tu descanso, tu reposo, pero levántate, dale ganas, échale, right? And my father and my mother both. I believe my father is a feminist in his own way.
Sure.
My mother I'm first generation, the only one in my family that went to college. Mad respect for my brothers too, because they're hard workers, they have their own business. And my mother taught me from a very young age, even though she gave me a lot of responsibility, she also taught me to be self-sufficient and to do my own thing, taught me to be resourceful. A lot of things that I attribute to my mother is that no matter what, I always saw her. She didn't tell me this. She didn't sit down with me and tell me, Mija, this is what you should do. I just saw it. My mom's drive to triumph and to survive and to surpass the situation she was in and the circumstances said so much. Ella siempre decía, no me va a ganar. And she talked about the circumstance she was in. Esto no me va a ganar. I'm bigger than this. Yes. Right? And so as a child, even though growing up, seeing the violence, I also saw that part of her that was like this butterfly that just like took ownership of her life at a point and said, this is not going to be my life, not your reality. So on the other hand, my father, he learned a lot along the way. He was a victim himself, like I said, and we hate one or the other gender, because we need both of us. All that community. Yeah. We have to have the people that are the abusers. They are also oppressed, and we have to help heal them. Yes. We have to heal ourselves. We have to heal the people that have been suffering a lot. And I think that's what it is. I think when I see Patricia and when I need that oomph, because you feel exhausted and you feel tired, you remember, you talk, you reach out, because that's the only way you're going to survive and you're going to grow, right? Yeah. Being an attorney, I'm at the point that I am, I think, because I reach out, because I see my colleagues that are older than me, more experienced and seasoned. I have no problem saying, hey, can you sit with me and talk to me about this case? Because it's not for me necessarily. It's because I don't want to do a bad job for the person that I'm representing. Every single person that comes through my door, being PI, immigration, whatever, I see in them what I would want someone to do for my family member. Yeah. Right? So I go above and beyond. It's hard a lot of the times, and we have to remind ourselves that we have to take care of ourselves too, right? And we cannot change facts. And some people are not ready, but that's how I do my work. That's how it's driven in me. Money, of course, we all need it, like I said, right? I wish I could get to the Thomas Henry level, because I want to help my community. Imagine the money that I had that they have. Yeah. The kind of money that I would pump into my community here in San Antonio alone. Yeah, absolutely. We would not be in the situation we are in. That's right. Patricia and I were just talking earlier about the lack of education, of the pipeline of our youngsters not going to college. There's a problem in San Antonio. Yeah. And that's the warrior spirit, and that's the rebel spirit. And we need to pump that money into our communities. Yeah. We need it.
Absolutely. Well spoken. You all have all of our respect. You have all of our trust as well, which is big in our community. And I can tell you, I'm co-signing right now on these two individuals. If you need help, if you need resources, if you need anyone to call for whatever it may be, give them a shot, folks. They've got, the background, they've got the experience, and they got that fighter spirit. I'm not messing with both of y'all. And now, La Mera and Patricia, you know what? The other words that y'all have said, beautifully, eloquently spoken, is community. Yes. And how we need each other. Yes. Speaking of community, we have a wonderful live audience tonight. Are y'all still with us? All right. And so y'all in the audience, our guests here, everybody watching at home is in for a wonderful treat tonight. Because if you've never seen our next performer, who is nationally traveled, he was recently in San Diego, internationally traveled, an amazing background. He's went up and schooled up in Wisconsin. He is a performance artist trained in traditional conjunto. He was recently at the San Diego Latino Film Festival, and tonight he's here at VodPod Media to reclaim, to take back the true meaning of Cinco de Mayo, introducing Nicholas R. Valdez.
Thank you guys for having me here. This has been amazing to sit as an audience member and watch all of this. I wanted to, before I kind of do my thing, like draw a bit of a connection of what I've been listening to tonight. You know, again, Cinco de Mayo, right? Like full disclosure, I'm headed to Houston, Texas this weekend to go do a bunch of gigs because there's an opportunity for working artists and musicians to, you know, utilize the audiences, right? And the economics around these events to sustain ourselves, right? And as a working musician, that's important. But, you know, taking those opportunities to say something about what we're doing, right? And, you know, I think it's interesting that Cinco de Mayo is a celebration about the French, you know, incursion into Mexico, but that happened less than 30 years after the Mexican-American War, right? And the Mexican-American War left Mexico in a very vulnerable place for this thing to happen. And the Mexican-American War, I think specifically in our context, right, created the Mexican-American identity. We woke up one day to the next, and all of a sudden we were no longer Mexicanos, we weren't really Americans either, right? And all of the traumas that have manifested themselves in our communities these days, right, result from that economic trauma, the psychological trauma that we've been experiencing now for generations, right? And our relationship with that history is complicated. One, because it's been so denied to us in our educational systems, but this ni de acá, ni de allá experience too has alienated us from our Mexicanidad, right? And so I wore this shirt tonight. You know, this is my, right? Don Ramon from La Chilindrina and the Doors, right? Because I think that is a perfect sort of manifestation of where we're at, right? We are like an amalgamation of all these things, and there's no wrong in it, right? Like we have a much deeper relationship with Mexico than we give ourselves credit for.
That's right.
Right? And I think Mexico as well, like our primos down there, kind of like they don't really understand our Mexican-American experience. They think we're a bunch of cholos and gangbangers because what they've seen has been filtered through American media, right? And in American media, we are not given the platforms to be able to fully express who we are as an identity. So I want to share a piece that I wrote. I wrote this years ago, but I was challenged to write a piece about commenting on the immigrant experience. And for me as a third, fourth generation Mexicano, like I had to recognize that I am not an immigrant, right? I've had the privilege of being here, but I understand that relationship. And so this is the piece that I wrote out of that, and it goes like this. Patria, I am my father's son. Patria, I am my mother's moon. I am both simultaneously, and neither of the two. Well, Patria, I am my father's son. Patria, I am my mother's moon. I am both simultaneously, and neither of the two. But my gypsy heart resents me for this conflict of identity. Are we the eagle, the serpent, or the cactus? From Maxlan to Tenochtitlan and back again. We are all descendants of great migrations, and we have been wandering this planet's surface for generations. You see, ice flight began with the ice ages. You see, back when manifest destiny was called survival of the fittest and genocide natural selection. We are all descendants of great migrations, and we have wandered this planet's surface for generations, and the proof of our evolution are prehistoric handprints on cave walls are petroglyphs chiseled onto the lids of Mayan tombs are the tigers' hieroglyphic dreams bombed on barrio boulevards. You see, the proof is coursing through our veins. Eya nawana, eya nawana, eya na, eya na, eya na, eya na, eya na, eya na, eya na. my father's sun. Matre, I am my mother's moon. I am both simultaneously, and neither of the two. My gypsy heart resents me for these conflict of identities. Am I the eagle, the serpent, or the cactus? We are all descendants of great migrations, but our truths have been lost to the generations. And our oral traditions have become oral fixations as we praise the gods of globalization who laugh at us and spit in our faces. We, the descendants of great civilizations, we who spill our blood, we who poison our lungs, we who bury our dead and mourn our young, lost to wars not meant to be won but profited from. I feel like I'm spinning off my access. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 500 years since my last confession. Back when on bended knees you forced your love in me and forsake the name of our first mother, Goyoshauki. Goyoshauki! She who dreamt us into existence. She who gave life without resistance. She who was denied her throne and left stripped of her colors, leaving for orphans her hummingbird warriors, standing at the crossroads, anticipating that cosmic alignment to resolve the space in between sunset and sunrise, invoking the mystery of our stolen herstory. Patria o muerte, mi bandera es la tierra. 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 Mi bandera es la tierra, mi bandera es la tierra. Por los siglos de los siglos, Mexicatiahui. Amén. And to kick us off, man, you know, because I am an acordeonista, born and raised conjunto artist in San Antonio. I figured a little polka would be good.
Yes.
And I want to invite our studio audience to come and dance if you want. Let's do a little polka. Let's do a little polquita here.
Show, folks. Hey, Gylon, we love you so much. Amzai, you were the best for coming in. Folks, we had a phenomenal show. Look, hire these people, pay our people, love our people. That's all we want. Thank you so much. Gylon, we love you. Take it home. Yeah.